Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sami and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Um, the 4B movement is not about anything other than just plain old misandry. The 4B movement is, well, there's one other thing. There's the ego of the Western nation. And then there is, which is tied to that, also the hatred of you. Western women have taken on as a whole what sisters have already championed. Glorilla has said that something about being a man's piece doesn't sit right with her. When a woman says that, that's a confession. They see you as their job to annoy, their responsibility to annoy. They're there to annoy you, and that's the end of it. And they don't see it any other way. You're there for them to annoy. When they say that they have a problem with being your piece, number one, and this is what I'm going to tell you, that is heartbreaking to say, but it's nonetheless true. And I've witnessed this in real time. Being a man's piece is a term that, for the most part, sisters use so often and exclusively that you have to think they coined it. I don't know who coined it, but it's something that sisters use so often that honest people will say sisters coined it because they'll really believe it, even if it turned out that it wasn't them that coined the phrase. So with that being said, there's a plethora now of various Western women saying that that's a red flag in a man. Him wanting that is a red flag, and that they don't do that, and that that's not a real man who asks for that or looks for that. I'm going to tell you now, I was never happy in a marriage until I married a non-American woman who was my piece when I would go visit her in Morocco. I still have good memories of her. She recently tried to reach me on an app by requesting a video call, but I wasn't awake at that time. And truth be told, I would have called back, but I'm married and I can't afford to take on a second wife. And I was hurt, but I was prepared when she asked for the divorce, though I did not know at the time what the reason was. I'm now happily married again. She is my piece. Now, there are things I have to get on her ass about, but likewise, she's had to get on my ass about some things. It's mainly one thing I've had to get on her about. She's had to get on me. I told her that she was my piece about everything else except that which I had to correct her about. And that for me to be hers, I just needed her to fix that particular thing I told about. She has never refused to be my piece. She's absentmindedly forgotten a particular skill that you have to use in order to be anybody's piece. But she's never just refused. I have grown up watching American women And I never dated white women, so I watched Black American women, and I watched Black women of other nationalities outright refuse to be my piece. And then as time went on, I watched them confess to refusing to be any man's piece. And now, when other Western women that are not Black start talking about how wrong it is and how it doesn't sit right with them to be a man's piece, what I hear is them imitating Black women. And I hate to blame Black women, except for when they're actually guilty. And this is a clear-cut case because, well, sisters bragged about this before. They openly stated early on, yeah, they're not going to be a man's piece. Something's wrong with that. It doesn't sit right with them. And why should any of them be any man's piece? And no, we don't do that here. And so enter in this election in which many Black men did not vote for Trump, of which I'm generally glad. More Black men just voted for the couch, of which I'm generally glad. Because I don't see a viable candidate really being allowed. I mean, the best candidate I can remember in the last few years was Bernie Sanders, and he was done in by his own party, almost as if they wanted the worst candidate they could get. And then Jill Stein. And I watched her pretty much be ignored. And I saw Arabs turn around and vote for Trump as if he's going to do right by them. I saw Latin Americans increase their votes for Trump like he's going to do right by them. I don't see it. So you have to remember that for all that Trump does not do against us, he's still affiliated with those who will against anybody. They'll do these things against anyone at all. So you have to understand that while Trump may be different from those who support him, he still relies on their support. And when he might lose it, he's willing to turn around and throw anybody under the bus to get it back. At least he's willing to pretend to do it, to throw anyone under the bus to get it back. That's who Trump is. I want you guys to keep in mind and understand and remember this about Trump in the future moving forward. But getting back to the topic at hand, in response to the election, we've heard a lot of these women start talking about taking the 4B movement into the U.S. They already discussed it before the election. I'm going to tell you what the 4B movement is really about when you hear about it in the West. The 4B movement, when taken to the West, transplanted to the West, is actually not about combating the patriarchy or combating misogyny. It is about combating men and whatever is a man's piece. That's what it's about. Women have been quietly refusing to be men's piece in the West, and then they have been more confessedly refusing to be a man's piece in the West. And now all the 4B movement is a refusal to be a man's piece, an insistence upon annoying a man and vexing a man, being the opposite of a man's piece, being a man's turmoil, and then being louder about it. That's all it is. It is those who have always said no, still saying no to the men to whom they've always said no, sexually and non-sexually, and now simply trying to say no louder to the same men they've told no so many times that those men don't even speak to them. It is the same women who complain about going to singles events and finding no attention from men and being invisible to men, finding men not even there, complaining because men won't show up in pursuit of him, saying no to the men they've already told no, and saying it again and again and again long after the men have left and have vanished and have stayed home or stayed away. They're now simply repeating no loudly and screaming it to the ghost of the men that are gone. In a nutshell, what they're doing is they're now screaming out no louder to their memories and saying it's a movement. And they're getting support for it. And they're even getting support, unfortunately, from a lot of black men. The polls showed me that while black men were being blamed for voting for Trump, most black men actually still voted for Kamala Harris. I do not call her Kamala because I don't believe that she's genetically black. I call her Kamala because she has lied about her upbringing and her national heritage and culture. That is why I call her Kamala. Genetically speaking, I think she's just the one in the family that admits to having black blood. I think that's what that is. She's looked at her dad and said, oh, come on, I can see it in dad. I don't know why he won't say it. And I think Kamala has looked even at the Indian community. And she said, well, they won't support me. I know they won't support me. And she realizes that while the Indian community won't support her, she could lean on black folk. And so she decided to go ahead and do it, not by lying about her DNA, but by giving up a family secret about her DNA. That which has no proof on paper, but shows up in her father. I believe that that's what the case has been. But nonetheless, black men overwhelmingly voted for her. Black men took blame for an awareness to which many black men don't subscribe. So what's really bothersome about the 4B movement to me is uh, the misandry element of it, but that's nothing new. What is noteworthy for you about the 4B movement is that the 4B movement, though largely leveled by Western women against whichever men are of the same race as them, is likely to be supported by many black men. Apparently, black men still have too many simps in the population. Apparently, the black male population is not resistant enough because you got sisters sitting up talking about this 4B movement and feeling comfortable doing it. You got black men that are on social media saying they no longer accept black women's apologies, which we should not do. But you have too many of them not on social media in real life dealing with these sisters willing to accept instead of saying the apology is too little too late. Even if I personally accepted yours as an individual, we en masse should not accept your collective because it's simply too damn late. We don't have enough black men saying this. We have white and black Western women alike sitting up and saying, if we see you coming down the street at night and we don't know you and we cross the street, you shouldn't take it personally. We're just playing it safe. We don't know you. We don't have enough black men saying in response, if we walk away from you when you start talking about commitment on paper in front of the state government in the form of a state sanctioned marriage, understand it is not because it's personal. It is because we simply don't know why you would stay committed if the state incentivizes you leaving. You demand a commitment from us, but we don't know that you will honor this commitment when the state is going to reward you with our cash and prizes if you decide you're tired of the commitment. We're not saying to them enough. And enough of us are not saying anything to them to respond to what they've been telling us. And I want us as black men to shape up and to fly right and to understand and to realize how up fuck this is. Too many of us are still simps. I'd heard that this might be the case. I really couldn't tell from just a visit into the United States. What I saw was evidence of more of an awareness amongst the black men that I know. But I must say that no. Apparently, from what I'm seeing in the polls, too many of us are still simping. I don't think we should have voted for Trump. Uh, I think a lot of us talked a lot of crap about voting for him just to vex sisters when many of us don't really trust him that much, which seems to be smart to me. Embracing being the villain and the bad guy has a political advantage in this case. But the issue was that many of us did, in fact, still vote for Skamala. That's the issue. Why the hell did we do that? People brought up real legitimate concerns to Skamala. And her response was to simply sit there and bring Megan the Stallion on stage, Megan the male horse on stage, who herself has shown a proclivity to lie, not on the stand, but in other ways, because she feels embarrassed, not because it's unchaste to fornicate with Tory Lanez, because that means it's unchaste to fornicate, but because it's just beneath her station as a proud thought. It is beneath her station to fornicate with Tory Lanez specifically, though she doesn't want him fornicating with anybody else. So she'll lie to stale King. Gang up with the girl she was fighting against just to throw Tory Lanez under the bus and put him behind bars. And Skamala was willing to sit up here and bring that broad up on stage to twerk instead of addressing the legitimate concerns. And don't forget this. Skamala Harris was proud to pose with Amber Turd after Amber Turd was already caught lying about Johnny Depp. Amber Turd did everything she could against Johnny Depp. And after that point, Skamala didn't think a damn thing about posing with Amber Turd. Amber Turd was so bad that this time last year, my students knew about not only who she was as an actress, but they knew about her nickname, Amber Turd, based on her trial. They knew what the hell she was putting Johnny Depp through. They knew about passport bros and how Western women were driving Western men away. And before them, some of my students in Riyadh, especially one of my black students in Riyadh, knew about a passport bros phenomena, but he thought that it was black women driving Western men away. I had to tell him it was Western women driving Western men away. How bad it is, and Skamala does not fib a guck. And the funny thing is that She felt comfortable marrying a man that cheated on his first wife. And we know Mother Cusswood well that they would drag a black man through the mud for the same thing. And unless that man is wealthy and famous, like Future, they will drag whoever marries him through the mud. The 4B movement is about shutting off everything. And they proudly proclaim that they're going to do nothing men like and do everything men don't like. But we know that they're going to go for this. They're going to make the same choices they've always made. What they want to do is simply make their no's louder, even when no one's asking, because they've already heard the no's the first time. That's all it is. It's nothing else. Just out of hatred for you. And most of us are not even red pill aware enough or just aware enough to see that for what it is. How many black men in person are going to sit up and support that? How many are going to say, not, okay, well, your body, your choice, but don't ask us for a damn thing either. But instead are going to sit up and say, yes, I can understand why, because your interests are actually against the interests for which men have voted. And aren't even going to sit up and say, wait a minute, we black men actually voted in your interest and we never got much for it. It actually works against us, and yet we did it. So how about you fuck the shuck up? You want to have a 4B movement, fine, but you leave our names out your mouth. We didn't do a damn thing to you. That's between you and the men of your own race. How many are not going to say, we've already been the most egalitarian men on the planet, and look what the hell it got us? And now you want to join these bitches that want to punish us for that? And emasculate us for exactly that? How many black men are not going to do that? You see where this is going? The 4B movement is not a joke. It's a joke to a certain extent, but the hatred behind it, 4B movement itself is, but understand that the motive behind the 4B movement is not a joke, though it makes them do dumb and ridiculous things and say dumb and ridiculous things out loud. Still, I want you to understand that the motive is very serious and it is hatred. It's not even these political talking points they bring up. It is hatred. It is not about their body, their choice. It is about their choice to determine that most of you are unfit for reproduction, but should still have to foot the bill for the reproduction that does occur. It is about the dual mating strategy. It is not about their choice per se. It's about their choice to dually mate at your expense and charge you for the insult. I don't know who these guys are that walk around saying your body, my choice. I hear that some women are saying that there are men saying that. I don't know what men are saying that. The men I know about are saying things like my wallet, my choice, my body, my choice, things like that. However, what I understand is that we don't have enough men that are even going to say my wallet, my choice. You made your choice and you're going to deal with the consequences of it, and you're not going to ask us for anything. We don't have enough men that are going to say, when you were stranded on the side of the road and you don't even know how to change a tire, it is not for us to stop, because how do you know that we're safe? No. You know, what you do is you sit there and you wait for a woman that knows how to change a tire to pull over. Or you wait for one of those bears to come and teach you how to live in the wilderness. We don't have enough men that are going to retort the way that we need to retort and give the responses that they really do need to hear. And that young boys of today and young girls of today need to hear us give them, so that they who are still children can grow up with it in their heads that there are consequences for telling men get lost and stay back. And that if you are ready to live with those consequences, then feel free to say so. But if you're not ready to it, you're just going to have to admit to the value of men. This is necessary. This is what I wanted you men to understand. This is what I wanted you black men to understand. More of us are going to need to take some of this red pill. It does not have to come with hatred, but we more of us are going to need this understanding of the red pill because of the mass deception in which sisters have engaged against us, in which white Western women have engaged against their own men, in which Asian Western women have engaged against their own men, and in which Latin American women raised in North America have engaged against their own men. And sometimes even within Latin America, which is why you have women in Medellin and in Brazil scoping men, giving them scopamine or scopolamine. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. I've seen two different spellings, but they're doing this not only to foreigners or so-called gringos, they're doing this even to their own men. And that is because in the new world, men are seen as either targets and marks or bedbugs if they're genetically viable enough, or invisible. That is the view of men in the Western Hemisphere. And we need more and more black men to not only know about what the passport bros are and what SYSBM is and who we are, but we need more and more of them to understand that the Western Hemisphere has its distinctions, the New World has its distinctions, and that these distinctions oftentimes include that men are just to be used in the eyes of women. And that even in Latin America, in Brazil, and in Colombia, where they are not raised with misandry, they're still raised to try to get as much out of men while screwing and smashing and cooking and cleaning as little as possible. So drug and rob the man, which is why you don't hear about that in Thailand. Men need this awareness because the fact is that women in Thailand are eventually going to be coached by women from Colombia and Brazil and from the US about women in Colombia and Brazil drugging and robbing men, so that they don't have to actually do anything in exchange for the money. Whether it's work below the belt or above the belt, the point will be that. Because the misandrists, the same ones that are talking about 4B, want to make sure, they've already said this. Feminists who before talking about the 4B movement already said that what they want for you is to have no choice, and they want for you to not be able to find an airport at which you can land and not face the exact same thing that you will face in the West or in Medellin or in Rio. They don't want you to have, see, they don't want to be your peace, and they don't want anyone to be your peace no matter where you land. They've already said this. This is why I've told you, gentlemen, we need to increase red pill awareness among black men. This is also why I've told you that we need to increase communication between black men of any nationality and the men of the nations to which we like to go and travel, so that we can tell them, especially when they're coming from these older traditional societies, so that we can tell them what the feminism is really going to lead to as an end result. how far it will actually go, what we know about the rabbit hole, because they're going to think that it may just be about treating women equally. And most men don't have a problem with that. And you're going to have to start telling these men. We're going to need more guys to tell these Arab men, as an example, you can be for women's rights and fairness and justice and refuse to be a feminist, because it's not going to stop at equality and rights for women. Feminism is going to continue until it's about rights you don't have, that they will, and that they would have it no other way. And that even the women that see feminism as only being about rights, equal rights and justice for women right now, are going to be pushed and pushed and pushed until they start to say that it's no longer about equality, because equality didn't happen soon enough. It is now about superiority. They're going to take on the militancy that black men have a right to take on and did not take on. How do we know? Because that's what happened in the West. You look at everything that these militant feminists and misandrists are talking about. We have the right to make these sorts of demands in a racial dimension, and we never did. Screw equality. It's about our supremacy, because it took too long to get too little equality. We have the right to say that, and we don't. We have a right to sit up and say, now it's about power without accountability, because we've had accountability without power. That's oppression. We have a right to say that, and we didn't. We have a right to say the benefits that veterans get, we should get without even having to be in the military, because we've been in the military and fought for benefits we couldn't get. And every time that we did fight for them, the benefits only came at an extra cost we should have never had to pay. Extra lynchings of our men that were in uniform. We have a right to make these one-sided demands as a race. And what's happened is that we've been told, get over yourselves, get over that. And then they've listened to women that have come along and made these one-sided demands when they've been taken care of, even when their rights weren't respected. When their rights were not, they were still looked after so well that Esther Villar had to write books talking about how men are actually the ones that are victimized by the deception. Having said decades ago what I've been trying to say before I realized that that's what she said. 4B is just another step, and as stupid and ridiculous as it is, you still must remember that what is behind it, the substance behind it, is a motive that is hateful to you and me, and really to anybody. Anybody that sees men as equals. Meanwhile, what black women and black men are owed, especially what black men are owed, is always called ridiculous and unrealistic to ever expect. And 4B is something we actually have a right to tell all women of all races to never mention to us, because we never provoked it. And quiet as it's kept, we know their men did not provoke this from them either, but we could leave that between them and their men. But you better not say a goddamn thing about 4B to us. I hope that what I've said is a benefit. And I hope that you go to the Buy Me a Coffee, subscribe to either business or first class, and get a hold of all of the confessions, as well as story time. From now on, I will post stories based on whatever the authors specify. If the author says, please put it on Buy Me a Coffee, I'll place it there. If they say put it on YouTube, then I'll place it there from here on out. And I thank you for listening again, and I hope that this has been a benefit. And as always, black heart, black mind, black out. Assalamu alaikum, and black heterosexual, non-select male power because they don't like it, and black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day. Thank you again for flying with us here on Jet Black Airways, where the phrase jet black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us until the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender, justice forever.